Hello there, survivors, and welcome back to ARK Survival Ascender. Today we're taking a look at 50 of the best base build locations on Valguero. There's probably a few more, but these are some of my favorites and a decent amount of variety in all of the different biomes that you can pick from. And there's quite a few to pick from, of course, on Valguero. We've got the lovely forest areas, we have of course the chalk cliffs, we have the redwoods, a very big snow biome, the taiga, even an aberration area. So there is a lot of variety to pick from, so let's get straight into it. And if you enjoyed the video and you want to see more, maybe some builds in some of these locations, make sure to like the video and of course subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That really helps me out. Well, this location is rather hard to miss, since a lot of people probably spawn right next to it when you load into Valguero, and it is of course this beautiful castle on the island in the lake. It's actually a really cool pre-made base that offers pretty much everything you'll need, and you even of course have the extra little island in the front as well. That definitely offers even more space if you still want to do some proper building yourself. Maybe build like a little town or a little village in front of it, maybe some farms, etc., you know, to really make the whole thing complete. But this castle offers you a lot already. You can probably get away with just a dino gate in here, and then you have a nice courtyard that you could either use for your own builds, but you could also of course use it for all of your breeding projects, because you'll have a lot of space in here. So even your biggest creatures you could easily breed in there. And then you have another gateway into another little courtyard. This is probably where I'd set up your whole survival base. So you might want to do a little bit of a building in here, but then of course you already have a pretty good build right here as well. So you could use this as your main storage and crafting room, because you should be able to place structures straight down here without needing foundations, which of course makes it very easy to move in early on. And yeah, you don't need a lot, but you probably want to have some doors, etc., to really make it feel like a home. There's plenty of layers here to utilize, because you even have a whole house up here, which is probably where I would do like your bedrooms, etc. But there is a lot of potential for this castle with, well, you have everything basically ready to go. You could of course still add your own builds to it. That's probably what I would do, because I want to be building my own things, of course. But there's no denying that it isn't a very good and very exciting location. You've got some stairs here around the back, which make for the perfect little docking place for your rafts, or of course your water creatures as you venture into the lake of Valguero, and of course the secrets below. And if you want to go for this castle, it is located right over here on the map. Helm's Deep is one of my favorite locations on Valguero. In fact, this is one of the few things where I actually already built and lived back on ASE, and it looks great this time around on ASA at the edge of the redwoods and the taiga, and it gives you a really cool base to move into without needing to do a lot. You can basically move straight in and feel quite safe already. Of course, a really cool bridge leading up to the main gate that you can of course fill in with, well, either normal dino gates, but you can also of course use the barn doors or hangar doors that are variants for the cellar doors. So you have like a 5x5 gate, which probably would fit quite well into this. And then of course we have this entire castle for our own. You have this outer circle that you could use for a few builds or a few of your dinos, and then of course you've got the whole inner circle here for even more space, which you can definitely use for quite a few different projects. And then of course we got the main hall here, which of course would make for a great crafting hall or storage location. And you even now have a location all the way to the back that you could use and easily block off with a gate. So yeah, to start to live here, if you just block off the back room, you're already safe to log out and etc. And even your tames should probably be relatively safe if you leave them in here. But that's not all. You even have this section to the side. It's already been blown up by orcs, so you might want to repair that wall. But it does give you even more room here at the side of the castle and the build, which you could definitely use as a decent sized breeding pen for even your bigger creatures that will fit easily in here. And you have a nice looking waterfall with a little lake right in front of here, and even some nice cherry blossom trees, which really make for a very cool aesthetic. You can find Helm's Deep right here on the map. Next up is this magical willow tree here on the coast of the big Valguero lake, and it's even in its own little pond, so water is sorted. And of course, it's a very cool and unique tree, so if you want to have this as the backdrop of your base, right next to it is this little platform. It is raised up, so a little bit safer. It looks quite cool, and again, you have that beautiful tree right in front of you, but you also have this small cave at the back here. You could probably clear out at least a few of these rocks. I don't know if all of them can be cleared, but some of them can, and then you'll have a decent amount of space, especially early on, to kind of just live out of until you start building the rest of your base. And again, it is some really cool, pretty unique location, and if you want to build here, it is located right over here. And of course, Valguero also offers an aberration area, which is actually rather large and offers some really decent lighting. A little bit better in my opinion than maybe the normal aberration map. And yeah, there's a lot of cool build spots here. For example, this kind of portal-like room with these big hoops. So yeah, if you like the more modern looking infrastructure of the aberration map, this is definitely a pretty cool option, especially here on the edge, so you have some cool views from the surrounding aberration areas. And yeah, once you get rock tracks and stuff, this would be an easy place to launch from and start gliding your way around, because of course, well, at least on normal settings, you can't fly inside of the aberration cave. But yeah, as you can see, this is a pretty good location. Lots of space here, of course, to do some bigger building on, and especially since you have more room to the sides as well. But yeah, why not utilize one of these pre-built structures? And if you want to do that, the coordinates, once you're in the aberration zone, of course, are these. Another really cool ruin location here in the Redwoods is this foundation for an epic tower base, which looks already quite cool. You've got the little bridge going over the waterfall flowing down into the Redwoods. There's some cool trees and definitely awesome views around you, but you have this, well, castle shape or whatever you want to make out of it, the foundations for a pretty cool circular tower base if you want to take it on. And of course, with just a gate, it should already be quite safe, and then maybe you can make a tall tower here to, well, basically live out all of your ARK needs. But yeah, it's quite a cool location. I really like the look of this one. I don't know what it is exactly. Could be just the whole image here, like the whole picture is very, very awesome, with the waterfalls, the light reaching this place perfectly with a little bit of a clearing. Then we have all the nice plants and shrubbery around it to really make it all feel alive. And yeah, I think you could do a pretty cool build here. I'm already trying to line up some things, maybe seeing if I will do a build here. But yeah, definitely a very, very, very cool location. And you can find this tower right here on the map. And if you like the snow and you like the ice and you want to be hidden away in your own ice temple, then I've got good news for you, because there is an ice temple right over here that you could go and turn into your own base. It's located here on the map. And then we have this nice entrance, which should be blockable with just a nice dino gate. And once you go inside, you have a decently sized room. Like, it's not giant, you can't do all your giant breeding in here, but a decent amount of space for like a nice base setup over here, I'd say. And then you could even have some of your tames out here to do some breeding in the snow biome, in the ice biome, and you can pretty much move in right away, as you can see, because I mean you are really safe once you're down here. But if you want to expand these ruins further and maybe do some of your own building, just be aware that you are, well, you're not right next to the Wyvern Trench, but you are really close, and someone could probably bring an unwanted visitor around if they fly off with an egg and something is chasing them. So yeah, just be aware of that. But yeah, if you want to go for an icy ruin palace vibe, this one might be the one. I think there is some ice cosmetics. I remember seeing something like that, so maybe that could help you turn this into something cool. If you do want to build here, this spot above, of course, you could expand and build something of your own and use this as like a hidden layer beneath it if you wanted to. Next up is a really cool base location, which is brand new on Ascended version of Valguero. There were some ruins here before, but there was just a few little pillars, and this time the Cardus has transformed it into the remains that are very like Weathertop from the Lord of the Rings. Which for me, as a big Lord of the Rings fan, is definitely a cool feature. I really like the look of these. They are much, much cooler than the ones that were previously here, and could definitely make for a very cool base. In fact, I used to actually have a base here on ASE, but of course now it's very different. But still, it would make for a pretty good base location. Well, the ruins themselves, of course, but also just the top of this cliff in general is a pretty cool spot. It is also just a very dangerous spot, so the surrounding area is quite dangerous. There is quite some creatures here that spawn, like gigas, etc. So yeah, it's not the safest spot. You definitely want to make sure you've secured your base. But now that these ruins are here, it's quite easy to at least secure the ruins themselves. You've got this nice pathway all the way up to the top, which is already very epic and gives you amazing views of the surrounding area. And then the platform itself, or the ruins themselves, are rather large, so there's definitely a good amount of space here, and you could of course give it a shot to try and rebuild this. Now, it is a very big structure, so if you want to rebuild the full thing, you could end up with something very, very large indeed. You could of course also go for something that maybe involves a little less structures, so you could turn it into a Colosseum or whatever. Or of course you could just mostly keep it open air and then utilize this area down here as more of your closed off base, because this is much easier to build an entrance in. And then inside of these ruins we have a nice room that you could turn into your storage room, maybe even have some crafting here. And then down here there's actually also a really cool room, maybe for some aviaries, because you can quite easily fly in and out here, of course. Or maybe add some windows and get a really cool base in there instead. Like, there's a lot of options, kind of depends on what you want to go for, but certainly it makes for a very exciting location, very central location, which is what makes it really, really great, of course. And yeah, it is located right over here on the map. Another pretty iconic location, I feel, is these ruins that are right at the edge of the lake, including these little docks and some other small ruins, but also just a convenient beach location to build on. Well, it's not really a sandy beach, of course, since it's just a lake, but you do have a decent amount of space here to build on. It is not too dangerous over here, and you even have some of these small ruins that you could integrate or rebuild as part or as your proper base. And if you go a little further up the hill into these forests, there's actually a bunch more ruins, so you could build a whole little town if you wanted to. But otherwise, at least you have some cool things with some crops right in your backyard. That might be quite convenient starting out in. It is a little bit more dangerous up here. As you can see, this Rex is already running around, but definitely a cool spot. And you can start safe as a bob on the beach and, yeah, live in one of these ruins. And if you want to do that, they are located right here on the map. It's no secret that Nakadas likes Lord of the Rings. I mean, we already had a Helm's Deep castle on the map, but now there is a very lovely addition, a very cozy addition, and that are these hobbit holes of the Shire right here near one of the starter beaches, so definitely an early game potential here. You've got a lovely little bridge here as well. There's one here in the middle that you can't actually go into or use as a base, but still it's a nice thing to have around just as the decor and landscaping. The landscape in general is pretty nice here, but you have two of these hobbit holes that you can go into. So this is the first one, little hallway, and then a pretty decently sized room in here. You probably want to make it a little bit more cozy if you want to live that proper hobbit life though. So the first one is located right over here, so that's one of them that you could turn into your base right away, because again, it's quite an easy area to spawn. But right on the other side of the river, once we cross it, there is another one of them. And, well, it's pretty much exactly the same on the inside. But this one is located right over here. And, yeah, you can also go in here, go around, and then you have another one of these holes that you could easily turn into your base. Again, I believe that you can already place things right on the ground, so you wouldn't need a foundation necessarily. But yeah, you probably want to make a little cozy house on the inside. At least that's what I would do. But it's a pretty cool addition, and for an early starter base especially, it's very easy, of course, because you can move right in, place a door, and you're safe inside. And if you like ruins and rebuilding ruins as much as me, this might be the final boss for us, because there is a very big and very large ruin in the chalk cliffs that spans quite far, and you could literally be building a full-on city here. Now it starts right over here with some kind of entrance that you could build up between these tower foundations that are still here, and the entrance would lead you into a beautiful bridge. Now this bridge you definitely want to rebuild a bit before you get into the first little village section, where we have a few houses already. We have some of the beautiful cherry blossom trees, which is also a really cool feature. And then we have another bridge that we follow over to the main section. Now, this main section also definitely has some option for your own builds, and it's also actually connected again to different parts of the landscape. So you might need some additional walls and gates to really make sure that you're fully safe in this base, because you can see we kind of have connections going all over the place. But we again have a few little ruins here, little houses spread around that you could try and rebuild, and then we get to the next layer, which has some towers still here that you could rebuild and build some walls and a nice gateway in between. Then this feels like the main town, where there's even more little houses and more infrastructure still intact that is waiting for you to come along and rebuild and turn it into something new, something with glory once again, and to enjoy the beautiful surroundings all the way around you. And of course, the main building all the way at the back is definitely also a good option. Again, more cherry blossom trees, some really cool statues here in the front of the entrance too. And then we have a decently sized ruin here on the inside that you could use as your main base with all of the storing and crafting that you might need. We have a few extra rooms here at the back too, including a very small one, a little cupboard that you could use. But we also, of course, have even more. We have a staircase going up to the next layer that you could try to rebuild. This is definitely where the rebuilding is starting to come in, because as you can see, this is very much broken down, but that means there's a lot of potential for some of your own influence here to make this into something really cool again. And then of course we still have the very top layer, but I definitely see the option to build something into here. You know, you could build a castle or whatever you want to build. But as I say, it is a rather large project if you want to undertake the entirety of the ruins. You could definitely do with just doing a section of it, of course. But yeah, it all kind of depends on how crazy do you want to get. If you're playing on a server with other people, might be a little bit too much, but it could make for a really fun project. If you want to find these ruins in the chalk cliffs, they are located right over here. And here, right next to the blue obelisk, is actually another pretty cool option if you want to build in the snow. Because as you can see, this cliff right next to it is quite flat and there is a lot of space. Again, of course, not the safest area necessarily, but once you got some defenses going, it is quite a cool spot to build in with some really nice view of your surroundings. You could also go one step higher over here. There's a similar cliff here that you could build along the edge of, and you'll get some really cool views of the rest of Valguero. And you're also very close to the obelisk, which also might be convenient. There's a water source here as well, which of course could be put to good use if you decide to build over here. So this cliff right here, these are the coordinates for this cliff right next to the blue up, so it shouldn't be hard to find at all. But if I was going to build down here, this might be the spot that I would choose. Again, it's some of the existing infrastructure that is already here on the map, but it looks quite cool and modern and just really interesting in general. And why I like this spot so much is because it has a lot of the natural light flowing in so that it doesn't feel like you're down in a very depressing place. But you could definitely build something really cool up here. Again, relatively flat area for building between these existing structures, which of course is already quite cool, and a really good view of the entire aberration cave in front of you. Yeah, definitely would go for this one. Looks quite cool. Of course, you still have some of the normal nature bits right next to you, but one of these pre-built spots is definitely a cool opportunity to go for, in my opinion. This one you can find right over here. All the way over in the corner of the map in the redwoods, we have a lovely lake, which looks very cool. And there's a nice sizable island right in the middle of that you could definitely turn into your own base. It's actually quite nice. Like you can see, quite a lot of sun here. Of course, most of these trees you'll be able to clear out. I think you'll have about 4 redwood trees still on your island, but of course you could utilize that to your advantage and even have a tree house or 2 going, maybe even just as a nice aviary for some of your flyers. But you can see there's quite a lot of space on this island. Should be relatively safe if you start to live on here, and you've got pretty epic views all around you, and of course just a nice peaceful lake too. Yeah, I really like this location, and well, you shouldn't run into too many people here because it's all the way at the corner of the map. That might be the biggest downside, a lot of travel time, but it is a very nice and beautiful location, which is right here on your map. Another place here in the taiga is in fact a cave. It's not a very big cave, although you could definitely expand here on the outside in this valley if you're brave enough, of course, because things might drop down, at least if you lure them into this. But as you can see, there's a little cave here. It's not a very big cave, not necessarily a very pretty cave, but if you want to do a cave build, this might be a good option. And again, there is also room outside here to do some building. There's a nice little bridge, nice little river, so definitely some potential. And if you want to build here, it's located right over here on the map. This one is a little bit more hidden up in the redwood forest, but it's a very cool little ruin with some nice cherry blossom trees as well. And if you like monkeys, this might be a really good opportunity for you, because as you can see, it's a monkey shrine all the way here at the end. You have a little bit of a ruin in front of it as well that you could maybe try to rebuild, or you could just have this as a nice garden and decide to build your base somewhere around here, somewhere here in front. It's a pretty decently flat area as well. So if you just build something cool here and then have the most awesome garden with the blossom trees and the monkey shrine in your backyard, yeah, that could also be a really cool option. And of course, a tree platform is always a good option too. There's plenty of redwood trees around to pick from, but yeah, really cool and unique location, of course, if you can use some of these ruins in your build. And yeah, if you like monkeys and you want this ruin, it's located right over here in the redwoods. And we have a lot of these cliff platforms that are, yeah, quite big, quite flat, and just really convenient spots to build on. This one is no exception. As you can see, it's kind of central in the map, and you have a pretty cool view of a lot of the lake. You see the redwoods in the distance, the taiga you can see from here, the chalk cliffs in the distance. So pretty good views, but more importantly, closer to the ground, you have a pretty large area over here that you could turn into your own base. It's pretty flat, so for building that is quite easy. You probably want to block off this ramp because that would be the way for land creatures to kind of get there, and then around the sides of this mountain is another access point, so you probably want to do something there. But there's also some RGs that spawn here, so if you really want to go and do breeding and leave tames on the outside, you definitely want to have some protection in the form of turrets or plants or, you know, anything like that. But as you can see, plenty of space here. You could build a really cool big base, whether it's a big modern base, a big castle, anything like that. Pretty good location to do so, and you're very central on the map, which is always a nice bonus, of course. So it is located right over here. Over here we have another lake. Now this lake is located a little bit higher than the main lake, of course, on Valguero. There's even some really cool waterfalls right here that definitely could be an option if you maybe want to do something with cliff platforms and going across these waterfalls. But more importantly, there's some islands in this lake. Well, this one is not really an island, but almost. And this one right here in the middle is a proper big island that you could definitely turn into your base. Only downside is that it's not entirely flat, so you'll have to do some magic with that to make a bigger base work. But I think that could be part of the fun challenge. You could still get a really cool build down on the lake, and the lake itself should be relatively safe, I'd assume. Like, there doesn't seem to be anything in the water necessarily that is very dangerous and that is going to annoy you, so it could be a really cool location. And again, the surrounding area is very, very beautiful. So yeah, definitely a good contender if you want to go and live on this island. These are the coordinates. Just outside the snow biome is this really cool looking place with all of these red trees, and I can definitely imagine wanting to build here. So this spot right here is a pretty decent option. It's like a raised plateau with a land bridge connection, so that means it is easy to protect and make sure that you are safe while still enjoying the views of the surroundings, all of those cool trees right on the edge of the jungle, and of course enjoying the views over the snow biome. And it is a pretty decent spot to build on. You can build a pretty cool base here, I think, without too much struggle, because it is, again, relatively flat area, so not too difficult to build on. There are some spawns, but once you start building here, it should be relatively safe on the platform itself. There is RGs in the area, however, so you definitely want to make sure that you set up some defenses before you leave some creatures out. And if you want to build here, these are the coordinates. And there are a lot of ruins and, yeah, little bits everywhere in the redwoods, but this one is actually a very pretty scene. Now, there's quite a few options here for base building, but more importantly, it's just so pretty. It is this bridge that kind of goes across these waterfalls and have all the cliffs around us. They have a fallen tree right through the middle, which is already quite cool, of course. You've got some blossom trees, some red trees to really set the scenes, and of course layers and layers and layers and layers of waterfalls flowing down. So whether you maybe want to build on top of the bridge, turn that into a base, or you want to maybe go on one of the shelves alongside all of these waterfalls, there's quite a few options. Like somewhere over here could be a really good option. Of course, any of these trees with a tree platform could be really cool. This platform has a bit more water, little bit more of a lake, but you could still build something really cool and cozy there. Yeah, there's quite a few options up here too. Got a decent amount of space and relatively flat space as well. And then you'll have the beautiful rivers and waterfalls flowing down all around you. And yeah, again, just a really cool and atmospheric location. And this bridge with the fallen tree and the waterfalls is located right here on the map. And if you just want a good view of your surroundings, then this plateau or cliff at the edge of the map is a pretty decent option. There's even a redwood tree here as well that you could utilize, but more importantly, it's quite safe. As soon as you block off the land bridge, that's your or two land bridges, that's your connection to the land. Of course, there might be some flyers that you also want to protect yourself from, but as you can see, quite a lot of space on this plateau itself. And from the edge of the cliff, once again, you've got amazing views of the entirety of Valguero that you can enjoy from here. So it's definitely a really cool spot with a lot of potential if you want to go and live in here. And it is located right over here. I mean, there is many spots here in the beautiful forest of Valguero that you could build and live, of course, but one of these locations that stand out is this cliff right here. Again, located with a nice view over the big lake. It also offers a very nice cliff, or well, platform actually, that you could build on. It is not completely closed off, so you might have a little bit of a job making it secure, but you do have your own water connection, which of course very convenient, means you can easily get some water running, and you have a decent amount of building space or breathing space, whatever you want to go and do here. So definitely a good option if you want to live in the beautiful forest here that cover a lot of Valguero. And again, close to the green up, so pretty convenient and easy to find, and some nice views all the way around you. So if you want to build over here, these are the coordinates. And then the next spot is this clearing in the forest. Well, you'll have to do a little bit of the clearing yourself as well, but you can clearly see it's a little bit more visible, a little less redwood trees around, which makes for a great build location. I'm also currently working on a build right now over here. That will be up later, but it's gonna be a big greenhouse, as you can see. But yeah, it's just a very nice location because it is a little bit more open, so you get a nice amount of light during the day. You just have some really nice and cool views of your surroundings this way, and it's also a decent flat area for building. That is of course very convenient, as you can see by the size of the build that I was easily able to just place down first try without needing to, you know, find the flattest area, which is always great. So yeah, it just gives you a bunch of space. And if you want to, there is also still a redwood tree here, of course, but most of the other things here you can easily clear out, and you can find this clearing at these coordinates. Then one of the prettier spots here in the taiga is definitely these waterfalls. There is quite a few waterfalls in general over here, but these ones look quite cool. Now you could go for a build in the lake here, maybe, you know, build something on pillars, or you could build it right over here on this little platform in the middle of this waterfall section. There's quite a few of these platforms that are a little bit more flat that you could build on. Again, definitely not the safest area to live or to build, but if you want to go for that cool aesthetic, I mean, look at the way these waterfalls come down. It would be a very pretty base location. So yeah, if you want to go for a cool waterfall base, it is located right over here on the map. As I said, the chalk cliffs are big and they offer a lot of relatively flat areas, which of course for us builders means ample opportunity to go crazy here. To go absolutely crazy here and build some big bases, but also for breeders that might need a lot of room, this is a really convenient spot. Therefore, there is definitely many opportunities here to go crazy and build something big. One of these is kind of the corner here, so you're a little bit more central in the rest of the map, which could also be an advantage, of course. You have some of these hills here at the end that are raised up a little bit more if you want to go for a slightly easier to defend location. But otherwise, just of course, these plains themselves offer a lot of room and therefore a lot of breeding and building opportunities. So yeah, if you want to go for it, just the plains in general might be a really good option, but specifically this little corner I would say is quite nice. So if you want to build here, they are located right here on the map. Now, there's probably many spots hidden in the jungle that might actually be quite good to build a base on, but they might be a little bit harder to locate. One of those spots that can be hard to locate, but that is definitely quite cool, is along the ruins here that lead up to one of the artifact caves. If you don't know, you have, well, this bridge is quite easy to find. Then you have a whole pathway running up these cliffs to an entrance of one of the artifact caves, and you've got all these lovely views and waterfalls and the surrounding swamp and jungle, of course. But from this bridge we can actually also get to a different part of these ruins. If you follow this over here, you get into something that could be definitely turned into a base. You can quite easily, of course, block off this entrance, make that one of your entrances, and then this could already be part of your own ruined base. Rebuild them, make them into a nice home. You've got a staircase that runs down here, all the way down this pathway, and then if you look up, you might spot a little monkey head right there, which is quite cool. But yeah, if you follow the staircase all the way, you'll get to another one of these ruins. Again, it's not a very big base per se, because there's not a lot of room in these. But if you want to live hidden in the jungle in one of these cool locations, then this is definitely a decent option. Runs all the way down here, and then you're back at the bottom layer and basically connecting into the swamp, I believe. So yeah, definitely a really cool and unique place to call home. But yeah, as I said, it is a little bit harder to find if you don't know what you're looking for. And of course you might have the occasional bug, and especially now that rhinos spawn here, yeah, it could be a little bit dangerous from time to time, but it's pretty cool. And if you like monkeys as well, that's just another bonus. It's located right over here on the map. And the next spot almost feels like some kind of dam that we have, and then we've got some beautiful waterfalls going down it. There's some cherry blossom trees, but more importantly, above the dam is a little lake, which is completely secluded from the rest of the map. So you have basically a nice water tame breeding pond, as you can see. Pretty decent amount of space in here, so even some bigger creatures you could probably do some breeding with without having to build your own pen, which is very convenient, of course. And then there's quite a few options along the shores of this lake to build on, or of course turning in this, well, kind of dam area that we have going across the lake here and where the waterfalls start. Yeah, that could definitely also be where you build your base alongside the top of that, or of course maybe some cliff platforms along the waterfalls flowing down here. There's quite a few options here. Even if you don't want to build up there, you could also of course go down and build along the edges of the lake down here and still utilize that pond up there, because it is quite convenient. And if you want to go for this one, these here are the coordinates. And next up is what I like to call the Chalk Cherry Blossom Grove. First of all, we have this beautiful island with cherry trees in the middle of this lake, which is definitely a really cool and beautiful spot to build. But you probably want to make sure you keep those trees around. So instead of just building on this island, you could also build on any of the neighboring cliffs around the place so that you have the nice views of the grove in the middle, and of course the water available for some of your water tames should you need it. But you could also just follow the waterfall down and follow the river down here, because there's definitely also some options on these platforms or the cliffs down here along all of these beautiful white chalk cliffs, and in combination with the pink trees, I think that makes for a very nice setting. But yeah, this is probably the highlight of it all. So building on one of these cliffs next to it might be really nice for a base. And if you want to build here, they are located right here on the map. Another spot we can't miss out on is the ruined castle in the jungle, which is quite a big build and offers you a lot of space to be turned into your personal base. Yeah, it's quite high up. You have, well, the castle itself, but you also have this second place with small little ruin that you might want to try and rebuild over here. It's not much here, but, you know, it's a nice extra little bit connected with the bridge to the main ruined castle itself, which is a rather large building with a nice flat top. So you could even go and build something nice on top of this to turn it into something a little bit more personal. But the best thing, of course, is the insane amount of space that you'll have on the inside. So whether you just want to build your main base here with all of the storing and crafting you might need, or you want to also do some breeding projects, as you can see, there's quite a bit of space and you have multiple layers in here with a lot of room. There are, of course, some holes that you might want to try and fill in, but there is, again, quite a few layers here to utilize. And then once you get to the roof, you, of course, have even more space all the way around, as well as another full building up here. This building alone could definitely already be your base, and then you could use the rest for breeding or whatever you want. And of course, nice flat spot at the top that you could even build more on should you need more space. But that is not all, because there is actually more connected to the build. If you explore all the different hallways, there is actually also a way down below, and this brings you into a cave area where you can have even more space. As you can see, there's a entrance here, I think, to the outside, which brings you eventually here to the outside. So it's basically a long passageway that you can follow, or that you could utilize, of course, which is connected to the bottom of your cave, which is or your castle, which is then right up here. And I think there might be... So yeah, all things considered and all things combined, it definitely makes for a rather big base. So yeah, if you want to live in the jungle, this might be a really cool spot. And it is located right over here on the map, although if you fly by, this is one of the few things in the jungle that you can actually easily see. Up in the taiga biome right next to the redwoods, there's a few cool build locations, but this one is one of the better ones, especially if you want to potentially do some bigger builds. It's not necessarily the safest area, but right here on this big plateau overlooking the redwoods and of course the whole taigas, you have this nice big lake, but you also have a pretty cool plateau here, which is relatively flat in most areas and big enough for even some of the bigger creations that you could dream up. And yeah, for example, on this cliff edge would be pretty cool. Some nice views of the entirety of Valguero from here. And in general, there's, well, around this entire plateau, as I said, like it stretches quite far. There is definitely a lot of building potential here. Again, maybe not the safest area, but it's a very pretty area. I mean, look at the waterfall down the side here. You have water available. You have a lot of options to build for sure, but you will need to be able to take care of yourself just because of all the UTs and everything that spawn here. But it is a rather cool location if you want to go and build in this biome. It is located right over here on the map. Another very nice looking location is right over here with all of these beautiful cherry blossom trees and waterfalls flowing down. It again makes for a very aesthetically pleasing base location where you could build on pretty much any of these little shelves or cliffs that you want. If we start right here at the bottom, this already makes for quite a cozy location, decent amount of flat areas, and then of course you're looking up towards these waterfalls, but you could also go live right here in the middle instead, and then you have kind of all this beauty surrounding you on many sides. And of course you could live all the way at the top on top of these cliffs. There's even some smaller ruins here that you could then integrate into your base, but yeah, lots of space, a lot of potential, and definitely it looks quite nice in general, this area. So yeah, really good option, quite central, quite cool, looking out over the Weathertop ruin, close to the green up. So very convenient location right here on the map. Now this spot you can hardly miss, but it's a really cool addition here to the Redwoods. It's a brand new castle and it is completely finished and ready for you to move into. Well, first of all, of course, it looks absolutely amazing. As you can see, even have a really cool redwood tree here in the backyard, which I would definitely suggest trying to keep around. The best thing is you can even place like structures just straight on the floor, like you don't need foundations necessarily. You probably want to try and lay down some foundations to get like doors in and stuff, or you know, maybe make your windows whole again. But yeah, there's a lot of space in these ruins, so you can definitely, well, it's not even ruins, is it? But yeah, in this castle there's quite a bit of space. It's a really cool layout as well. Of course, if you do like building, you could always add something around it or on top or in front of it, because there's a nice flat spot in front that you could build a little town, or maybe your breeding pen if you want to breed some bigger creatures, because there's not a lot of building that you'll need to do for the castle. Place some gates in these. They seem to be perfect dino gate size, so should be relatively easy. And then you'll have a pretty cool and amazing base with some decent views as well. It's a little bit more on the edge here of the redwood, so you'll look out a little bit on the chalk cliffs back there too. So yeah, definitely an interesting location. And if you want to use this as your base, it's located right over here on the map. And then this location I think is really cool just because of the views you get from the entire redwoods, as well as it's just nice and high up, relatively easy to defend. And once you start building here, you'll have a really cool platform. It's a pretty flat location as well, which is always great for building, of course. You can see I've already built my little fire lookout starter base here. Tutorial for that one is already up. But yeah, it's just a nice central location. As you can see, you got good views of the redwoods all the way around you, good resources around as well, and just a really nice place. There's no redwood trees on here, so you can clear out the trees if you don't want them, but I might try and keep some around because they look quite nice, and it gives you a decent amount of space and a pretty cool plateau to use as your base, which is located right over here on the map. Up next is this really beautiful location with the taiga behind you, connected to the nice big lake, and these beautiful waterfalls flowing down between these cherry trees. And there's definitely a good potential for a nice base here on all of these different shelves that you have to build on. Basically, like you have this spot over here that you can definitely build on. Clearing out this layer over here would be a good option, and of course just right above it on that ledge would also be a pretty good option to build. And then you can still enjoy the beautiful surroundings right in front of you, connecting to the greater bigger lake all around Valguero. So yeah, it is a pretty cool spot here. combining a few of the different biomes that are meeting here for a really unique place, in my opinion. So if you want to go for this place and you want to build here, these are the coordinates. And there's even more ruins for you to rebuild. These are right in the middle of a lake, so it's nice and easy to make this a safe location. It's also right next to the green orb, so you can always easily find your way back home. And the good thing, well, at least for if you're a builder, is there isn't a fully completed ruin, meaning you can still do a lot of the building yourself, and you have some creative liberty to make this into something really cool. Another convenient thing is they're right next to the beaver dam spawn, so that is always convenient, of course. And you have this nice little island in the middle, so you have this smaller island to land on and make your way upstairs and run from the beavers in case you stole something from them. Then you have this lovely cool bridge crossing over to the second island, and this is where your castle is. Now, some of the walls are a little bit broken, so asking for some repairs. And as I said, there's not a full built castle here, but you do have here the beginnings of something, like the remains of maybe a hall or some kind of temple or whatever you want to turn it into. And I mean, this is pretty nice in my opinion, because this means you can actually start doing some of the building yourself and turn this hopefully into a really cool build and a cool convenient base. And if you want to do that, this is located right over here. If you want to go for a really unique and magical base location here in Aberration, then these floating little islands that are available might be a really cool choice. Of course, it's definitely a lot more difficult to get to these base locations, since you can't fly in here unless you have a server or single player where you change those settings. So you'll need to have gliders to get up here, or make like zip lines or other ways to get yourselves high enough to actually be on top of here. But good thing there is Cosmos in here, so that would be a good way to get around. It's one of my favorite ways to get around. And you have a few different floating islands here right near one of the entrances that you could choose from. Now, this definitely isn't the most convenient base location or the most flat or the most roomy, but if you want to go for like that magical floating wizard's tower, or you know, something like that, this could be a really cool opportunity. And if you want to go for that, these three little floating islands are located around these coordinates. And another great example of a really nice to build location here in the Chalk Cliffs is almost right at the corner of the map, again at the very top layer of the Chalk Cliffs too. So you're high up, you have really good views, and you'll have plenty of space for whether you want to build something big, you want to do a lot of breeding here. There is a lot of room, and as you can see on top of these cliffs, again, good flat areas. You could build along the cliffs here and have an amazing view of the entire map, even the ruins there in the distance. But if you want to build a little more inland, we have a little bit of a raised section here that you could definitely turn into your base. It's not the safest locations necessarily. There is some evil things that spawn here, but yeah, if you set up a few decent defenses, you should definitely be good. And there is just so much opportunity in the Chalk Cliffs in general to do some really good builds. But this one here is located right over here on the map. The Chalk Cliffs are, of course, one of the iconic biomes of Valguero, and there's definitely a lot of really cool build locations, like the giant ruins, of course, but also just a lot of really nice flat areas that you could do some bigger builds on. This is one of those. Right on the edge of the map, you have a place at the very top of the Chalk Cliffs, so you can look down over the entire map and look across the entirety of Valguero onto the rest of what the world has to offer. And as I said, there is actually a decent nice spot here. There's a lot of space, as you can see, a lot of flat space as well, so perfect for building your big base, your breeding pen, whatever you need. Has a lot of room here with some amazing views and also some easy access into the redwoods, which might be quite nice. So yeah, definitely a really good option. And if you like to build, these are the coordinates where you can find this one. And a place you can definitely not miss when exploring the chalk cliffs is this little grove hidden away in a big hole that comes from this river that is flowing down, and then you see all the red trees and the purple glows, and it makes for a really cool and unique location with these big teeth-like spikes coming out from the rocks and a nice little island surrounded by some red looking water, red trees and everything as well. So definitely got some cool aesthetic going on, and it just offers a decent place in here with decent amount of space for you to build on, relatively safe, except of course if things drop down into your base. So you definitely want to have some protections just to be sure, but in essence this is a rather safe location and definitely one of the cooler places. Of course, getting in and out is the easiest with flyers, because otherwise you're gonna have to do a little bit more work, but there is actually also a way out of here. So if you want to do that, that is right over here. It's a rather long way though, and definitely not everything is going to fit through this cave. I don't know if there's certain aspects of this that you could harvest to make it a little bit easier to pass, but eventually this passageway brings you out into the rest of the chalk cliffs, and that means you could, on smaller tames, at least get there on foot, which yeah, always a nice added bonus. But I couldn't of course leave this out of the list because it definitely is a very cool and iconic location, which you can find right over here. Maybe you just want to be down on the ground here on the aberration floor. There's definitely also some nice green zone locations. One of my favorites is right over here. You've got this nice waterfall, a lot of lovely greenery around, and again, lots of that natural light coming in, and there's actually a pretty decently flat area here for building, of course. That is very convenient. So if you want to build something big or you need a decent amount of space for your breeding projects, this could be a really good location. You'll definitely need some defenses. It is aberration after all. There is plenty of dangers around the corner, but again, I think it is quite a nice little spot and definitely a decent amount of space to go for your base. So if you want to build over here, it's located right over here on the map. This is another really cool waterfall coming down here in the taiga, and definitely a really cool option for a base where you want to go build in the lake. You want to maybe build on top of one of these platforms around it. All these shelves are pretty good options, but there's also actually caves back here. So yeah, you can now fly in. You have a decent sized cave right away, but there's even a bigger cave. If you follow through, you can come down into this giant purple cave, and there is a lot of space in here. There's also a lot of resources in here that you might not all want to lose, but it's definitely got potential. If you have something particular in mind that you would like to build in a cave, there is definitely a lot of room here. And there's even a connection here to the underwater ocean. So yeah, you can even have some bigger water creatures out here. You have a few of these water ponds in here to utilize, and there is multiple entrances and exits through all of the waterfalls, so you can easily fly in and out to all of the different layers. You don't have to necessarily go through the layer that we went into. As you can see, there is basically an entrance behind all of these three waterfalls down here, as well as the bigger waterfall up there. So definitely a lot of potential there if you want to go for a cave base. And next up as a build location are these plains, which, I mean, there's nothing necessarily very exciting here, except for the fact that it's just a large open area that you could do a bigger build in, which of course is quite nice. Probably the most exciting feature could be these giant skeletal remains, which is quite cool, of course, to integrate into your base or just have as decoration around your base. But again, more importantly is that you have a bunch of space here, so bigger builds, bigger breeding projects, you name it. This is a good space to do that. There's a lot of space here. You have some nice surroundings with mountains, waterfalls flowing down around you as well. Cool views of the snow biome, easy to get your wyverns from here. So yeah, definitely a good option in my opinion, and located right over here on the map. And of course, another spot we can't ignore is this new castle here in the middle of the taiga, or well, actually more on the edge of it, right where the snow starts to come in. And yeah, it's quite a cool castle. Once again, easy to turn into a base. You need a gate up front to close off the section, and then you've got a pretty big courtyard to use for well, some of your builds, but also of course breeding projects. There's definitely a lot of space in here that you could safely use. And once again, you've got a completely finished pre-built structure here that you could call home, and yeah, that you could easily turn into your main base, put in all your storage and crafting needs right away without needing to do a lot of work. So yeah, if you want to go for one of these pre-built locations, there's a pretty cool one here too, and again, a decent amount of space without needing to do any or a lot of building to make it into a pretty practical and cool base. So yeah, if you want to go for this one, it is right over here. And then we can also find Stonehenge on the map, which of course is a really cool little sight to just see. There's even a fish being offered on the altar in the middle. And I think you could definitely build something really cool. Maybe not necessarily in Stonehenge, because at least I would probably just keep this as a cool site, but around it there's definitely a few options. You could build right next to it right away, but also maybe some closer to the waterfall over here, or the cliff right next to it, because again, there's a decent amount of space there. Kind of depends, of course, on how big you want to go. You can even go around the big rock and build along the coast of the big lake. As you can see, I've started building here as well. But yeah, you have a decent amount of space there, and then you have this in your backyard as just a really cool place of interest. Stonehenge and the surrounding options are located right over here. And again, there is many good and awesome build locations in the chalk cliffs, but one a little bit differently is one of these, well, almost land bridges that are a little bit easier to secure as well, because if you block off the one side, you are totally safe up here, and you do have some really cool views of the surrounding area, including this awesome valley that runs through much of the chalk cliffs, and definitely is a really cool place to look out over. And yeah, you could build up here. It's relatively flat again, so easy to build a nice big base on, and you'll have some pretty great views of your surroundings on this land bridge leading to this big rock spike. Water below you, so if you're brave enough, you might even be able to jump down into that. I don't know if it's deep enough, but you could definitely give it a go. But in general, just a nice area that is a little bit easier to secure than if you're just building on the plains or the other flat locations around the white cliffs. So if you want to go for this one, these are the coordinates. And for all our cave dwellers out there, in this beautiful valley in the chalk cliffs, all the way at the end, we have already a pretty cool area that is kind of on this overhang that would also make for a pretty cool location. And you could even build a wall up there if you want to go for the cave-like feel. would be a big job. Maybe a little bit easier would be blocking off this entrance over here, because this has a rather large cave right behind it that has some purple glow to give you light, but it does offer quite a bit of space on the inside, which of course is quite convenient. You have a pretty big pool here that you could do some breeding in, at least for water tames. And yeah, breeding wise, you definitely have enough space to do even your bigger creatures here on the inside, while still having a build on the inside as well. So yeah, again, if you're looking to do a cave build and you can stand the purplish glow everywhere, then this could be a really good option. Definitely offers quite a bit of room, even a little bit of a higher area up here, which connects back up as another entrance. So yeah, you definitely want to block off those two entrances, but other than that, you have a really cool cave location with plenty of space, and by the looks of it, at least for me, nothing really spawns in here, which is incredible, because that means you don't have to even secure it too much, and you can move right in here and yeah, go to town. And if you want to find this location, probably easiest to find the outside over here. These are the coordinates. Maybe you want to hide away in the snow. That is a pretty good option here in this like hidden valley all the way in the corner of the map. It offers a pretty decent area with this nice plateau over here, which you could build on, which is, yeah, relatively flat. Again, definitely a lot of space here, even some good resources to get you all started. And down here you have even more room, maybe for your breeding projects, etc., and all that in this pretty cool but secluded and hidden away little valley with two entrances, one right to the obelisk, and then the other one slopes up here going out into the rest of the snow towards where the taiga biome is. So yeah, definitely a really cool and unique option to build in the snow without needing to defend yourself too much, because it seems to be relatively safe in here. It is located right over here. Then definitely one of the nicer areas here in the snow biome is this waterfall flowing down. There's some red trees around it, and the water kind of flows slowly down the mountain into a little lake. And I think right here on top of this hill, this cliff, would definitely be a good option. As soon as you clear out some of the trees, you have a decent amount of space here, probably keeping that red tree, and of course you'll have a nice view over the little river and waterfall flowing down. Yeah, quite a cool location in my opinion if you want to live in the snow and still far enough away from the Wyvern Trench, so you should hopefully not get any unwanted visitors. And if you want a little bit more space to build in, this valley between two biomes might be a pretty good option, because there's definitely a lot of space here. This slightly sloping up valley is, yeah, quite big. It does connect all the way back to the lake down there. There's even some sides here around. We have some plateaus that you could use to build on both sides, of course. But you could also just make something really nice here in the middle. You have all the space that you would need for sure. It is a little bit of a spot that does have some dangerous spawns potentially. Like, I do think sometimes Rexes spawn here, Allos spawn here, and also the new Mega Raptor can spawn here, I'm pretty sure. So it's not the safest place. You definitely want to be able to defend yourself, but you will at least have a bunch of space to build. So if you want to go for this one, it is located right over here on the map. And if you want to just be high and safe, there's definitely quite a few options in these forests that cover a lot of Valguero. Right over here we have one of them, for example, this nice cliff that even has its own little water source, so you don't have to worry about that. And you have plenty of space around here. There's a slope leading up to it. That is the part you'd want to secure, and once you've done that, I think it makes for a pretty safe base to build on. Decent amount of space, and of course good views located right over here, but maybe you need a little bit more space or you want to expand. Right next door is another one of these platforms. It's a little bit bigger. There's I think 2 options to get up to the platform, or at least one. You'll have to check and make sure that you secure those, but it will offer a decent amount of space. It has a tiny little pond, so that also means you have a water source available, and again you have got some pretty good views of your surroundings and definitely a decent amount of space to build on. So if you want to go for the bigger one, it's right next to the other one, of course, but it is right here on the map. But if you need even more space and you still want to build in one of these pre-built locations, then this one might be the one for you. It has a giant bridge leading towards some kind of vault looking door, which would definitely make for a really cool backdrop. And in general, this platform is quite big, so if you can secure the whole thing, you definitely have a lot of space here for your different breeding projects. Of course, you can build a really nice base here as well to utilize. And yeah, again, you have a little bit of that natural light coming into parts of this, which I personally really like, so the map doesn't feel too dark and gloomy. And you also have some really cool structures here, like these glowing screens, to make it feel even more like a very cool and unique aberration location. There is also a ramp down here on the side to get in and off with the rest of the aberration cave, so you might want to secure that side. And then here on the other side, you can see it's a sheer drop-off, so here you're good. So basically the bridge area here in the middle and then the one ramp at the side is kind of all you need to think about for securing this platform. And then you have a really big space to make into a really cool base. If you want to build over here, you can find this one in the aberration cave around these coordinates. And there we go. That is some of my favorite build locations here on Valguero, but there's definitely many more out there. If you have some really good suggestions, of course, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, please don't forget to leave a like. Really helps me out and I appreciate it a lot. And of course, subscribe if you don't want to miss out on any of the future videos, including, of course, many builds in some of these locations here of Valguero. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video or the next stream. Goodbye.